Hello, I'm Rambo Talabo, and you're watching Rappler Talk. For today, we have House Majority Leader Martin Romualdez. He's also the president of Lakas-CMD, one of the rising parties as we look at 2022. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, our social media accounts on Rappler, and also our Rappler page. You can watch us there. If you have questions, send them over. I'll ask Majority Leader that. Congressman, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rambo, and thank you for inviting me to Rappler.
Okay. Congressman, sobrang init talaga ng usapin ngayon ng elections na. I mean, I know you're busy with SONA. I mean, it's really important, but ang dami na talaga lumilitaw ng mga tanong sa 2022. So I want to ask you directly right now, the biggest announcement from your party is the endorsement of Sara Duterte. I want to pick your mind. Why endorse Sara Duterte? Why is Lakas CMD allying itself with Sara Duterte?
Well, we'll not get ahead of ourselves here. What Lakas-CMD has done was to renew its alliance with the HNP. We did a similar alliance for the 2019 elections, and I think that yielded very, very positive results. And the synergies and the chemistry is very, very good. So we decided that we'd do it again. So as I know, the HNP
Recording in progress.
has not yet decided as to who their standard bearer is. Of course, the head of that party, the HNP, is Sara, Mayor Sara Duterte. So we've been in talks with the leaders of the HNP, and it just came very naturally that we'd renew this alliance, and we're moving forward there. And that's it for the time being.
So usapin, talking about 2022, and then it just came to Sara Duterte. But of course, one of the questions usually coming from, alliances for 2022, is it just about the Duterte name? Is it just because of the winnability that you're allying yourself with Sara Duterte? How does Lakas CMD see Sara Duterte forwarding its vision for the Philippines? I mean, you also have your party politics, your own party vision for the Philippines. Where does Sara Duterte fit in that?
Well, Sara Duterte figures in it as that she is basically the head of the HNP. And as your majority leader, we've been working closely with her father, the president, on the legislative agenda of the administration, and we've done quite well in terms of the performance of the House of Representatives and with our friends in the HNP in putting forth the agenda. So we have all the tax revenues, the tax reforms, all the new initiatives that we have to face the COVID pandemic. We've done very well with that. So it's more of that than anything else. And I guess it doesn't hurt that the father and the daughter, both Dutertes, are faring very, very well in the polls as of today.
From what I'm getting, Congressman, it's about continuity. It's about practicality, yun ba? Instead of having a new platform being brought by Sara Duterte, instead of may bago, it's more of mas madali makipagtrabaho sa kanya. Ganun ba? Tama bang pagkakaintindi ko?
Well, yes, and of course, any platform is a work in progress. So the current platform has been working, and that resonates in terms of the acceptability of the Filipino people with the administration. That's why we have the president with very, very high ratings, despite as what they call the period that we are in is usually they call the lame duck period sets in, but that's hardly the case, no? So I believe that the administration is on the right track, and continuity of the same, if not improvement thereon, is what's in order.
Okay. But also, mga tatanungin ng mga botante, I mean, not to really look into the future intensely, but syempre kung Duterte na naman, anong bagong ibibigay ng Sara Duterte? And for Lakas CMD, what do you think does Sara Duterte bring to the table, and what do you want Sara Duterte to bring to the table, considering that your alliance is already much renewed?
Yes, well, as you know, it's not necessarily Sara Duterte, the personality, but of course the platform that her party brings forward. And until, again, as I said, that final decision is made, no, we'll have to still not preempt, but rather focus on, as you were saying, the direction, the vision. And as we see it, the current order of the day is addressing the pandemic. So we have to defeat this COVID-19, and the vaccination rollout is happening right now. We would want it to be much faster and more effective, but I guess the government is doing the best that it can, working hand in hand with the private sector. And I hope that this stems the outbreaks spread, particularly now with this Delta variant that seems to be very, very transmissible.
Mhm. I'm glad that you raised that, Congressman. Let's talk about that later, how important current issues are while we're being fixated for 2022. But konti pa, I'll just ask you a little more about 2022, Congressman. You're pretty much set on endorsing Sara Duterte to run for president. But how about vice president? You're also one of the names being floated for vice president and being teased by President Duterte. Lakas-CMD, is it fielding you for vice presidency?
Well, let's again. I just always I want to precondition it. We don't want to preempt Mayor Sara Duterte's prerogative and that of the HNP, but she hasn't declared yet that she's running, so it might be premature for us to say that we're supporting her presidency. But rather, our alliance is what has been renewed, and we'll take it one step at a time. In the case of the vice presidency, again, we also pledged to work with the HNP in the determination of that choice. I'm very, very honored and very, very humbled and very, very grateful for the president to even consider me as a possible candidate for the second highest position in the land. But of course, we're in deep consultation for that. And of course, we would obviously like to put in the most viable candidate for that position for 2022.
Mhm. And Congressman, tama bang pagkakaintindi ko? So you're leaving it up to Sara Duterte. If ever she runs for president, iiwan nyo kay Sara Duterte kung sino gusto niya VP. It's by tradition din naman.
Well, we'll leave it up to the HNP, but obviously, that's why the alliance has worked out quite well. Is that they've been very, very, responsive and sensitive, no, to the desires, to the interests of Lakas. So definitely, it's always in consultation, but obviously, recommendations can be made, but decisions also likewise have to be made. So again, not preempting that process, we will be working together.
Mhm. Understood, Congressman. And Lakas is fielding you for vice presidency.
Well, the president premised his support for me in the case I decided to throw my hat into the political ring. I've been considering the option, but I'm very, very, again, humbled and honored that the party has decided to throw their 100% support behind my decision, whatever that might be. So I'm very grateful for that and for the flexibility that they've given me, but with the support that they put forth, it's been very, very exciting.
Okay, but are there talks already about Sara Duterte running and also choosing a vice president? Because there are a lot of parties wanting to ally with HNP. And of course, they also want to lobby for their own VP. Are there talks already about this?
Oh, there are always talks. I mean, you know how it is in politics, speculations of the various permutations or combinations are always put forth. But nothing serious, so to speak, has been finalized, no? So I guess it's a matter of looking for the right combination, looking at the viability, the chemistry therein. So that's still what is happening right now.
Mhm. And Congressman, ano naman, President Duterte parang nagsasend siya ng mixed signals when it comes to his prospects for 2022. And kasama ka dito kasi sinabi niya mag-VP ka daw. But then a few days ago, I think just yesterday, he said that he also wants to run for VP to avoid charges, which is false according to some lawyers. What does this mean to you? How do you decipher the words of the president? Mamaya sabihin niya si Martin pwede yan, and then later sabihin niya tatakbo ako. How do you appreciate this?
Well, just a little bit of background here. This was basically brought to fore about 2 years ago when the suggested formula upon our consultations with the president came out. And he said that while he recommended that I be the majority leader for 3 years, but he committed that if I decided to run for the vice presidency, he'd definitely be endorsing my candidacy, and I could basically count on that. But I've also, privately and now even public have told one and all that while definitely, I'm honored, humbled, and very grateful for the graciousness, no, for the honor, for the consideration, so to speak. But I actually mentioned to him, both privately and I've mentioned it also publicly that based on his performance, no, that he would be actually the strongest vice presidential candidate because his ratings are very good. His performance, I guess, has been well appreciated by the people of the Philippines. So I said that he'd be the candidate to beat as a vice president.
He is the candidate to beat if ever for ratings wise, but is he the vice president that you want to have? I mean, does Lakas-CMD also have its support for President Duterte instead of you? Ikaw mismo, kung sino gusto niyo maging VP. Of course, you also have your own interest for VP. Tama ba, Congressman?
Well, our interests are always based on what we feel is the best, for the country, no? So we always subordinate our personal interests and our ambitions to what we feel is the best. So I guess, it's very simple, no? We look at the cold hard figures and the numbers, no, of the surveys and the ratings, and that is usually a reflection of the people's sentiments and their preferences. So we also tend to, agree with this, and we'd like to leverage on those strengths and see how we can put that forward.
Okay. Congressman, about fresh blood from PDP Laban factions a few days ago. We're seeing the GMA, President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, who is a key figure in Lakas-CMD. She's a key figure also in PDP Laban. And then you also have Attorney Raul Lambino, who used to be with Lakas-CMD, and then now with PDP Laban. There are analysts who are saying and people who are speculating that parang ano to, takeover ng Lakas-CMD sa PDP Laban. What appreciation of that?
Well, thank you so much for for that thought, but there's nothing done on purpose here, no. That's not by design, but rather, I guess it's by consequence. You see, Lakas-CMD was the much vaunted monolithic party, not only in the early 90s to the late 90s, but after GMA took over. So it's the party that produced two very, very great presidents, who did very, very much for our economy. And so a lot of the leaders in the Lakas then are emerging. Well, they might be in other parties now, but their heritage is Lakas-CMD. That's why we're very, very proud of our party. And we're very, very proud of the leaders that they have spawned. And we believe that they can still do a lot for the country, regardless in whatever positions, in whatever parties they occupy right now.
Okay. Congressman, meron lang question from our comment section. How will Congressman Romualdez place himself if Bongbong Marcos decides to run against Sara? This is a pretty...
Yes, no, go ahead. Go ahead. I just go ahead.
Bongbong Sara, I mean, people are also speculating na magkakaroon ng alliance dito. But then for Bongbong running against Sara, what do you think of that? And where will you place yourself?
Well, I think it's very clear that both the Duterte and the Marcoses family are very close. I know they're in constant dialogue, and even Senator Amy is very close to Mayor Inday Sara. So that's a very unlikely situation, and we will be seeing the Dutertes and the Marcoses going, at cross purposes, so to speak. No, so I'm not looking at that as a high probability. So I think those dialogues and those conversations between the mayor and the former senator and Senator Marcos are always, in place. So I doubt that very much can happen.
I'm glad that you mentioned prospects, Congressman. So anong prospects niyo for 2022, considering the probabilities at hand? VP, Senator, and then Congressman? Ano pa ba?
Well, I just got back from Tacloban. We had our fiesta last month. And, well, my first love obviously is my district, our hometown, Tacloban. And there's still much that I can do for Tacloban City, the district, the provinces there, and the region as a whole. So that's my focus right now. And unfortunately, because my focus is there, perhaps I haven't been around the rest of the country since I campaigned in 2016. So that's why I'm a bit challenged when it comes to the awareness. But definitely when I'm back in the region and in my district, where I really, feel that I've a lot of work still to do, I'm most comfortable.
Okay. Easiest choices, Congressman, kasi mas kilala kayo doon. Congressman, yung PDP Laban kasi may faction siya. Ang nire-recognize niyo lang ba yung Pusi-led faction, yung inattenda ni President Duterte? The Pacquiao faction, how do you appreciate that? Does Lakas-CMD see it as legitimate?
Well, I look at the PDP as a party as a whole, and I have nothing but the deepest respect for the PDP and my friends there. Now, I really, really would like to refrain from making any commentaries or making any statements about the ongoing developments within the party, and I'll respect the decision of their party leaderships and whatever that resolves itself.
Okay, so papanoorin muna natin how it will go down. Congressman, about our legislative agenda, you mentioned this, napakahalaga na meron mga current issues tayong pinag-uusapan because 2022, I mean, it's also a pressing issue, but it's not as pressing as the pandemic, the legislative agenda of President Duterte. And as majority leader, you're also tasked to, be the whip when it comes to passing these laws. An Ateneo study just came out, Congressman, saying that President Duterte, while he passed a lot of laws, these laws are particularistic. So, sabi nila yung mga laws daw na ito parang pagpapangalan daw ng mga kalsada, pagpapaayos ng mga hospital ng mga municipality. But when it comes to priority legislation, apat lang daw ang napirmahan at saka hindi masyado napasa yung mga important ones for responding to the pandemic. Example na rito yung Bayanihan 2 na nag-expire and then Bayanihan 3 na lobby din sa Congress. What do you think is the reason for this? Kasi ang sinasabi nila is lack of political will. As the majority leader, saan nagkulang?
Well, actually, I have a different point of view there. I think that the administration of President Duterte has done a lot. And while there are the usual, renaming of roads or edifices or structures, that's been actually very, very much, very, very low priority. And that's what I've seen coming across my desk. Yes, indeed, there have been some, but that's not necessarily the case. As a policy. Instead, that's what I've been trying to say earlier. This administration has focused on a lot of amendments. In fact, there are three priority amendments, such as or rather, three priority legislations, no? That's pending now in the Senate that we passed the better part of the year with the Public Service Act, the Foreign Investments Act, and as well as the retail liberalization. All that's meant to open up the economy because on top of the Bayanihan laws that we've passed that were meant to actually address the pandemic, no, as well as the economic effects thereon. After the health issue, the health of the personal health, the health of the economy is primordial. Livelihood, jobs, and the general policy of the president that he would like to have every Filipino in a more comfortable state. So we've seen most of that coming out. And in fact, the other priority measures that we've seen coming across and even witnessed in our LEDAC are the creation of agency to address these infectious diseases, no, and also the organization for medical corps to address the pandemics, ill effects, so that they could be mobilized, much faster than the current setup. And that's at the heels of everything that we've passed as the legislative agenda, the SONA legislative agendas that we've all been witness to. So no, I don't see it actually the way you've mentioned it, no. So I've seen it more of a very, very progressive, a very, very economic, focused legislative agenda that would actually get us to the point where we could make the Filipinos more comfortable in their lives and to make them safer at the heels of this pandemic and the effects therein.
We also recognize that congressmen are working hard under this pandemic, especially. But ang tatanungin din ng mga tao, congressman, ano nangyari dun sa Bayanihan 2? Billions of pesos, di ba, na binalik na lang sa treasury kasi hindi nagastos. You mentioned in earlier interviews that you were lobbying for, calling for the palace to call for Congress to hold a special session on this. What happened?
Well, that wasn't any more taken up, no? We did bring it to fore. The speaker actually, when we were at the Malacanang Palace, had brought it up to the leadership of the executive through the executive secretary. Right now, no, there's a bit of we'll have to get more clarity as to what remained unobligated or undisbursed. But we were assured that most of the funding balances of our concern had already been downloaded, no, or disbursed. So we'll have to get the final say-so on that matter from the DBM. But our concern was just that we wanted to make sure that all the resources that were appropriated were utilized within the period. I guess they felt that the Bayanihan 3 could be addressed with the upcoming submission of the net expenditure program or the budget for 2022. So I'm anticipating that most of our concerns would be included now in the budget that we'll be receiving after the SONA is delivered.
So pagkatapos na lang, ihahabol yung kasunod na budget kasi ito talagang nag-expire na lang. So hindi na talaga siya na-take up. Tama, Congressman?
Yes, we weren't able to take it up. So I believe that there was also well, another point of view na, hindi, yung pondo na yung sinasabing balance, na-download na. So if that actually happened, then we're very glad for that. At least, hindi na nasayang, no?
Okay, Congressman, going into election season, magba-budget season kayo at marami pa rin kayong kailangan ipasang mga batas. As majority floor leader, as the whip for this, how are you going to make sure that lawmakers are lawmaking and not campaigning for 2022? And are you
Well,
going to hold
yeah.
yourself to the same standard?
Well, actually, you said, how I'm the traditional term there is the whip. Well, we've not necessarily had to use the whip, so to speak, in Congress. Rather, under the leadership of Speaker Velasco and even under former Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano, your legislators, your House of Representatives has actually been doing fantastic in terms of being very participative. And even despite having the pandemic that has created many challenges, we've decided to take advantage of technology. In fact, just like this meeting that we're having right now, the Zoom facility and the technology that it has brought has allowed us, to have an engagement that is actually much more than what has been afforded by the actual physical presence of each and every member of the House, thereby having all these committee hearings actively very much engaged in the issues that have been submitted to them in the bills and in the resolutions before them. And thus, even the plenary has been discharging its functions. In fact, we are actually doing quite well. We average close to 50 measures being tackled every session day. And versus the 17th Congress, we're over 100% up in terms of legislation enacted. So, well, I'd like to modestly state that your House of Representatives have been really doing a fantastic job, and it's to the credit of the leadership right now under Speaker Velasco and also former Speaker Cayetano that we've been doing our duties, and that's what we're all here for. And I think the 300 congressmen, have really been doing a fantastic job in finding ways and means to make sure that all the legislation that is put before them is properly handled and taken care of. So, yes, definitely, I'm proud of that. This has been happening, and I'm so proud to be part of the team that has made this a reality.
Mhm. But then, Congressman, that's also pre-election fever. Kasi papasok na talaga tayo sa election fever. And are you confidently saying, and do you really believe na walang congressman na talagang magmakampanya instead of attending committee hearings? You're confident that all congressmen will not be going around their provinces instead of attending committee hearings, TWGs, sessions? Kasi nangyayari to. And how would you prevent that from happening?
Well, that's a natural phenomenon because actually, as you know, as this administration is winding down, so is the Congress, and definitely most of the legislation that has been filed, so to speak, all the bills have actually been tackled. So we're actually, kumbaga sa House of Representatives, we don't have much of a backlog, so to speak. So as I said earlier, I'm very proud to be part of the team that has allowed this to happen. The natural consequence, obviously, is after the 2022 budget is passed, and this has happened every election year, so to speak, things start to wind down because the ability also to get the measures passed in the Senate becomes much of a challenge. So we just try to finish what we think can actually be passed or enacted, no? So that becomes the focus. But nonetheless, I am very, very sure, just like even today, in case that we'd be out on the road or on the campaign trail, so to speak, we have the facility of the Zoom. In fact, I was going to try to catch up if I wasn't going to make it to do this Zoom meeting via my mobile phone. And that's happened a couple of times. So I guess there's nothing to fear in terms of us getting, or as you would say, whipping the congressmen and the congresswomen into participating into very important hearings or plenary sessions to pass the legislative measures before them. So I assure you that that won't be the case. The Congress, your Congress has been very, very responsive, and we're very, very happy. In fact, we're targeting that when the net expenditure program will be submitted to us, we promise or we commit to have this done before even the filing of the deadline of the filing of certificates of candidacy. So that's sometime in October. We've done it in the past, so it's not a far-fetched no, ideal or goal. No? So, and I'm sure the speaker would want this to happen as well.
Okay, so that's a goal you're aiming for. May pasa na kaagad yung budget before the filing of candidacies. Ang bilis na na, that's in a few months, 3 months.
We've done it before. We've done it before.
You'll do it again. And tamang pagkakaintindi ko kung congressman na okay lang na mag-ikot-ikot na mga congressman ngayon habang medyo magwa-wind down na ang Congress.
Well, actually, Rambo, to be honest with you, I've been back in the district, and even my wife, the congresswoman of the party listing, well, we've been back, no? And I think the new normal right now would suggest that we won't be able to do exactly what we did in the last election. In fact, the degree of personal engagement may not be as such as it was in the past, because the protocols that have been laid down by the ITF have made it such that we have to moderate, no, the physical contact plus the social distancing. So we're quite mindful of that. And again, with this new Delta variant, we have to be extra careful that we just have to be more innovative in getting our messages across, using all platforms of media to get our message across and to communicate with our electorate and constituency.
This interview is also winding down like the Congress. Congressman, ito, merong mga question pa rin about also internal politics at the House of Representatives, yung mga ouster, and the mga lumitaw na ouster rumors sa yung pag-oust sa'yo as majority floor leader. What do we say to that?
Well, Congress is a great place for gossip. And for so long as we just focus on the work and the tasks at hand, then that takes a back seat. But that's just part of the rumor mill. But we rather focus on the legislative mill.
But Congressman, within your circles and congressmen you also are speaking with, congresswomen, lawmakers you're speaking with, meron pa bang discontent sa current hierarchy within the House of Representatives?
Well, you'll never be able to please everyone, but at the end of the day, what's most important is the performance, So as long as we get the legislative agenda, of this administration put forth and done, and of course sensitive to the local legislation that each of the legislators have, then I think we're in a substantial compliance, with what they would call, our duties, for both the national as well as the local.
Okay. My last question, and this is pretty spanning, baka may follow-up pa ako, Congressman. I mean, as a lawmaker with your own constituents, what do you want and what do you want to see passed before President Duterte steps down as president? Anong mga batas, especially with you having your own constituents, what do you hope to be passed?
Well, obviously, what's already been put forth, and we hope that what we passed in the House be done, and that's already been declared urgent, and that will help definitely our economy. What I obviously would like to have been passed would have been the creation of the disaster department, for disaster and resiliency, So that would actually address not just the natural disasters as we've seen it in the typical typhoons, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, but even the pandemic. And I guess in this experience, it's very easy to clear, It's also so clear to see how important, such a permanent, a fully dedicated department or agency to address these concerns. Why it's so important to have a separate budget just for this particular, focus, because we always have the creation of the setup of the NDRMCC, which is an amalgam of all the department heads. But each of these department heads, after a disaster or pandemic, still have their other respective works to do. And that doesn't give us much focus, perhaps, or continuity, when it comes to addressing disasters, or even in this case, the pandemic, So that is something that has been very, very much, my advocacy since the Yolanda typhoon. And we hope that is passed. We've passed it in the House, and we're hoping that the Senate considers this as important.
Okay. Congressman Martin Romualdez, the House Majority Leader, President of Lakas-CMD. Thank you for speaking with us at Rappler.
Thank you so much, Rambo, and thank you so much, Rappler.
That has been Congressman Romualdez. Thank you for watching.